This is one of the Warriors' favorite days of the year because we get to get dirty the Warrior way. Haley McNamara joins us today for an explosive announcement and initiative created by the National Center on Sexual Exploitation in Washington, D.C. The center exists to build a world where people can live in love without sexual abuse and exploitation. Haley McNamara is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and Programs. She leads joint campaigns within areas of legislation, litigation, and corporate advocacy regarding the full web of sexual exploitation issues. Her advocacy work has contributed to so many policy improvements in social media, online, advertising, retail, hotel industries. The list goes on and on and on. Haley regularly speaks up and out and writes on topics including child sexual abuse and sex trafficking. The website, all you warriors out there, endsexualexploitation.org. Welcome, Haley McNamara, to the Warriors.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Well, are you ready, Haley, to get dirty with me? Because
Absolutely.
Today I want to get real dirty. Get ready. The floor is yours. Explain to us this great day, what happened today that I'm so excited about, and all this dirty talk.
Well, it's my favorite time of the year. It's the launch of the 2025 Dirty Dozen list. Now, I think that many of your viewers will have heard about this list before, where it's an annual campaign. We name 12 mainstream corporations that have facilitated or profited from sexual abuse and exploitation. So in the past, we have highlighted companies like Instagram, Hilton Worldwide, Walmart, TikTok, all of these companies that we know and interact with regularly, but they often are facilitating sexual abuse and exploitation, especially online. But this year, the 2025 Dirty Dozen list is a little bit different. We just revealed that all 12 spots on the Dirty Dozen list are filled up with Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. This is, for us, incredibly significant. Go on. Do you have anything to share?
No, I want you to go. I just almost had a little bit of a heart attack because, I'm always railing against Section 203. But please, go on, please.
It is a historic change. We've never done this before. That shows how important this law, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, is, that we've set aside the Dirty Dozen list and said, this is the single greatest enabler of online sexual exploitation. Every year we have victories with the Dirty Dozen list. We've had policy changes at Google, at TikTok, at Snapchat. These companies have made changes, but it's too slow. They're piecemeal. We're playing whack-a-mole while sexual abuse and exploitation are skyrocketing online. And it's because these platforms believe that they have broad immunity from any kind of liability because of this law. So this law needs to change.
Yeah, I want to go back, Haley, and make sure our warriors understand. Because, when the public generally hears Section 230 or anything legislative, they kind of actually close their eyes, in my opinion. Close that door. They don't want to hear about it. This is critical and crucial to everything going on in every child's life, family lives, everything with the internet. So let's go back a little bit. Mm-hmm. Explain a little more about this Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, because you know what, Haley? I'm getting gray hair waiting for this thing to be kicked to the curb. So go ahead, explain to us where it came from, and because you did kind of bottom line it, but I want them to really understand, because I talk about this every day, but you're the expert. Tell us.
Well, this law was passed in the early days of the internet, before social media, smartphones, and the modern internet did not exist as we know them today. And they were regulating the internet. Their goal was to actually shield children from harmful content online with Section 230 as a simple special provision, so that there would be a good faith immunity from liability for the platforms that were doing everything they could to remove abuse online, and just make sure that they weren't disincentivized from moderating third-party content. The problem is that original part of the law, the Decency Act part of the law, that whole focus was to protect kids online, got struck down by the Supreme Court. And Section 230 was left standing, this promise of immunity with no requirement for those good faith, good Samaritan actions from the companies. And so what has happened is that it has been interpreted by the courts as granting this near blanket immunity for anything that's happening on these platforms by third parties. And it's gotten to such an extent that even in cases where the company knowingly, recklessly, or negligently facilitated or profited from sexual abuse, from child sex crimes, sex trafficking, non-consensual imagery, they're still just given this blanket immunity automatically by the courts. And so what's happening is survivors are coming forward with really real claims, and they're essentially being shut out of the court doors, which is something that we don't see in any other industry. We don't see that in the automobile industry. We don't see that, in like the manufacturing industry. It's only for big tech gets this blanket immunity, and we just think that no longer should exist.
We don't think. We're going to demand, Haley. We got to get tough on this one. We got to get warrior tough. It's fair to say, would you agree that Section 230, I like to kind of bottom line and break it down. In other words, for the public, it's kind of a newsstand or a billboard. They're not responsible for anybody's content put on there. What would you say to that?
Well, the problem is that sometimes they have knowledge of crimes happening on their platforms. Sometimes the design of their systems don't have safety guards on them, and then it allows and facilitates. Sometimes they're profiting from sexual abuse and sex trafficking. One example that I think is a really harrowing example was highlighted during our briefing today, and that is a lawsuit that our law center is involved in against Twitter, for now known as X. They were Twitter at the time, who a young boy was 13 years old when he was groomed online and coerced into creating sexually explicit content, which is child pornography, child sexual abuse materials. That got posted on Twitter, got over 160,000 views. He reported it to Twitter. He did the right thing. He told Twitter, this is imagery of me as a minor. Automatically, that is child sexual abuse material. Also, it was in the context of a sex trafficking scenario. Twitter sent back an email saying they reviewed the content and they did not find that it violated their policies. They allowed it to remain up, where it garnered more views, and views on these social media platforms is money. It adds up to profits for Twitter. And so they are immune under CDA 230, even though they knew that there was child sexual abuse material on their site, and they let it remain up. And that's the kind of bad faith actions that we need to be addressing in the court system. And CDA 230 is not allowing that to happen.
Exactly. And you hit the nail on the head, because people will say to me all the time, why is this allowed? Why is it happening? Section 230, everybody, Communications Decency Act. And also it's dollar signs. And that's very crass to say, but that's actually what's going on. Kids mean dollar signs with this. I love the way this 2025 Dirty Dozen list was unveiled, because one huge entity that I'm saying is holding everything up. That's my warrior's opinion. But also that you had all these stories, because people are visual and they like to actually hear. Unfortunately, these stories are not good, but it makes people, Haley, understand what's really going on. Let me now get down to really something I'm going to go tough on. Big tech, in my opinion, rules the roost. They've got billions of dollars behind them. How are we going to take the campaign, amplify it, get the public involved, and make this happen? Because we've seen, I am sorry, everything's bipartisan, right? All of these issues should just, everybody can get on board with. But we have seen over and over again, especially the last couple of years, even NCOSE, Kids Online Safety Act, couldn't really get it anywhere. What are we going to do with this campaign that's going to be different and really change it up?
Yeah, I think now is the time when we need action. And actually, I would call on your audience to be part of what makes this campaign impactful. You can go to dirtydozenlist.com, and we have an easy way that you can take action to contact your legislators, contact your representatives, and demand that we repeal CDA 230. Because like you said, big tech is not coming to the table. That's why our call to action is repeal, because at this point, big tech is fighting any kind of reform, even the most common sense, like the Kids Online Safety Act. In 2024, big tech spent $51 million lobbying. And they're lobbying against common sense regulations. And so they have refused to come to the table. So we need to repeal what their immunity is. I do believe that now is a time where there is growing outrage, honestly, because we're seeing the harms and the consequences of an internet with no accountability. There was a report that came out just a few months ago by Thorne that said 1 in 4 kids has an online sexual interaction with someone who they believe to be an adult. 1 in 4 children. It's unacceptable. So I think that unfortunately the harm is making it on people's agendas. There was a hearing in February where there were bipartisan senators calling for at least reform, if not repeal, of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. So there's interest there, I think, on this, especially the Senate side. The House needs to be better educated. There's interest, but they need to hear from their constituents that this has to be on their agenda, because big tech lobbyists are knocking on their doors every day. So we need parents and concerned citizens to be knocking too.
Yeah, and this is me saying this, Haley. It's like money talks and crime walks. That's
Mhm.
that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying all day long. But you know what? How much more? I mean, you're saying the House needs more education. I have to say, Haley, when you see parents standing there with, their children on T-shirts, on signs, and holding it in their faces, how much more do they need? Because this has been in their faces now. And I do feel like the tide is changing. I feel like there's something in the air that we're going to start really getting some things done. But I have to point out yesterday when I saw Jeff Bezos, so Amazon, throwing in his 2 cents, he may want to buy TikTok. That scares me. I'm digressing here a little bit, but follow my thread here. And then I see that Mark Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla moved into DC in one of the most expensive mansions. I say to myself, what the heck, Haley, is going on here? Are they really going to change? Or are they just trying to play nice? Like, do we really think? I don't know if you're hearing anything about anything, but all I know is we have to have success with this Section 230, because so many children, you pointed out the 1 in 4 from the Thorne study. If it's 1 in 4, it could be 1 in 3, right? Because a lot of things aren't reported. But what are you hearing about big tech that's been since January kind of roaming around Washington? Anything?
It's just been fascinating seeing them work to try to embed themselves in the Washington DC sphere. And I do think that a lot of it is because they see the tide changing and they feel in the wind that there is this growing bipartisan interest in reforming CDA 230 or repealing it. So I think that they are sending up their lobbyists and trying to establish those personal relationships as well. And they often are sending out a lot of fear tactics, claiming that if we amend CDA 230, it will break the internet or it will hurt free speech online. And they're hoping that people don't dig deeper and actually look into those claims, which are really false on their face. So I think right now, it just is the time when we have to make this stand, because big tech is looking to protect themselves, protect this immunity. They don't have to worry about lawsuits from people that they harm. So it's a time when people need to raise their voice. And like I said, contacting your elected representatives, because like you said, I don't think that anyone in good faith could analyze this and not see that it's a completely unfair scenario that we've set out, that the incentives for big tech are only to protect themselves and not to protect kids online.
Absolutely. And can you share anything? Because I get this question a lot from my warriors. They'll say to me things like, well, what goes on at these companies behind the scenes? Don't they have people that are looking at this stuff, or safety teams? Or to me, it's very non-transparent. What can you share about that? Because you think they do claim they're doing everything in their power, to keep kids safe. We know otherwise, but what do you know about that?
It's very fascinating, because I do think there are people in all of these companies who care, who are maybe parents themselves or are trying to make a difference. But the problem is these teams should be double, triple, quadruple the size. They should have way more resources. than they have, because fighting abuse online is a really big job. And the bottom line is they are not given the priority in the company that they need. One example is, so often these platforms will unleash a new tool, and it's that idea of we break things and then we fix them on the back end. They'll release a new tool without properly vetting it for safety concerns. For example, when Snapchat put out their Snap Maps and tons of children's geolocations were shared, parents didn't have any idea it was coming. There was no move to make sure that people were automatically had their location turned off and could opt in. Children's locations were just automatically shared. And then they said, okay, we'll go back and we'll do some education on the issue. And well, parents should really be constantly checking the app settings and changing it. But what needs to happen is the safety teams need to be in the driver's seat here, and they need to be vetting things before they go out, because when you're moving fast and breaking things, as tech likes to say, the problem is the things that you're breaking are real people and their lives and innocence and safety that can never be given back.
No, you know what I want to do, Haley? I want to go back. I love the way different stories were rolled out. I shouldn't use the word loved, because with all of this is, quite traumatic, all of this, but there is so much hope with this Dirty Dozen list 2025 being released, going after, and rightfully so, Section 230, that's holding up lawsuits, holding up, these poor children, families, adults, holding up everybody. Share with us, because I think that is you shared one story, but share a little bit more about some of the stories. I want people to really understand, but I also, Haley, want them to understand how much hope we have going on here, because we're talking about it. We're addressing it. More people are understanding it. Give us some more stories.
One story is of an 11-year-old girl who was on Omegle, which was a video chat site where it would, almost like Russian roulette, connect you with other people. And this site paired an 11-year-old girl with a predator who immediately began grooming and extorting her. She threatened to hack her system, to come to her house and hurt her, and extorted her into abuse. And to imagine an 11-year-old child, if you have any children around that age range in your life, it is horrifying what can happen in the span of 20 minutes if you're in a room, a virtual room, alone with a predator who's intent on abusing you. And this girl, even though Omegle was the one that paired these two together, her case was not allowed to go forward because of CDA 230. The exciting thing about our reveal today that does give me so much hope is that we had a panel of legal experts and also a panel of survivors and experts talking about the consequences of the abuse. And the legal experts really made it clear that this law didn't exist for forever, and it can change. And we can have, whether it's drastically amended, completely repealed, and then built back in a smart way, we can do that. We've done that before with other industries. And so there is a path forward here, but the problem is just the will. We need the political will to make it happen.
And we also need all of the public to get on board, understand this, and take action, because the center lays it out so beautifully. And no worries, because I'll put it all in the body of this video. Everybody can just do a little click here, a little click there. It takes seconds, and I do not exaggerate, to be part of all of this. The work is all done for you, warriors, from the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. So we'll have that out for you to take part, take your time, read about things. I'm so glad, Haley, you brought up survivors. Everything in this arena, so to speak, we need to have survivors. We need their voices. We need them to share with us. It is so important that they be part of everything at the table. And I'm so happy they were able to be a part of this today, because this is what also resonates with the public, or some of their stories, how easily this happened to them. And you pointed out that Omegle, that's like a bullying. People have to understand, you can't close your front door. Kids can't, in the old days, we used to close the front door. You could get away from the bullies. This bullying's 24/7, 365. The internet is opening your front door to the world. It never goes away, and kids are the targets. What do you want to add to that? Because I really want, when I explain that kind of as like the bully nonstop with kids, people kind of understand that. Now we've got the advent, Haley, of AI. It's here. I shouldn't even say the advent because it's here. It's lurking. It's going to explode any second, in my opinion. Do you want to add anything in about this artificial intelligence, what we're looking at?
I think it just shows that technology is moving fast. It's ever changing. And we cannot afford for safety to be the secondary thought. We, of course, want progress and innovation, and these online tools are so powerful. The fact that we're able to have this conversation in different rooms is really amazing. But the problem is incentives. And that's why I think CDA 230 reform is so important, because not every company is going to become liable for every bad thing that ever happens on their platform, but it will open the court doors to survivors to share their stories and to call for accountability when it is appropriate. And there are times when it is appropriate. And just that possibility being on the table is going to completely shift the incentives at big tech, whether it's with artificial intelligence, emerging technology, social media, any of these different online platforms. Their incentive now has to factor in thinking about safety before they release the next new thing, to double check, to make sure that they're doing their due diligence. Because if they're acting knowingly, recklessly, or negligently in a way that facilitates sexual exploitation, they should be held accountable. And so that's what CDA 230 repeal would do.
And also I just have a feeling, Haley, like this Congress, 119th Congress, I feel like it's in the air. Change is going to happen. There's too many things percolating. I want to make sure the public always knows, because of this, there's so much hope out there. Yes, we talk about, heavy subjects or things people don't like. But earlier you pointed out, things come to the table after something happens. We're tired of slapping the Band-Aid on. We got to get in there before. And we have to take care of things and establish, rules and regulations and education for everybody, and then engage the public. Finish this up right now, obviously, because I love this Dirty Dozen list. I've been with it from the beginning, I think. I mean, I just always, because number one, it's so good year after year. Number two, it's so easy for the public to get involved with. The work is done for them. I love the idea of Section 230. It is just the thing holding everything up right now. Besides all of this, what do you want to share that parents and caregivers should be looking at right now? Because they'll say to me, "Oh, Lynn, you tell me too many things. I can't focus on this. I can't focus on that." What would you say besides this? Because we're going to be pushing this. What should they really look at?
I think obviously CDA 230 repeal is so vital. One reason why it is there is also a rising crisis of sextortion online, which is impacting children all around our nation. Unfortunately, this can happen even in the span of a couple minutes or an hour, where a predator can contact a child, coerce them into sending an explicit image, tell them that they have to pay. And this tragedy has unfolded so many times where children have even died by suicide as a result, because the predators, who typically are actually part of organized crime and are acting in a very intentional way to facilitate this abuse, are skilled at doing so and making them feel like there's no hope and no way out. And the scary thing about this rising crisis of sextortion is that it can happen so fast. There are some children who this has happened to in under an hour. You think the child is in their room doing their homework, and then the worst nightmare in a parent's life happens. And I think that shows why, of course, as parents, we want to be engaged, talk to your children, use this interview even as an excuse to say, "Oh, I was hearing someone talk about this issue of sextortion online. Has anyone ever said something like this to you or to your family?" Talked with your kids. That is, of course, really important. Of course, turn on parental controls and try to build healthy digital boundaries for your family. But when predators, like you said, you can't shut the door on the bully like you used to be able to. When they have this open door into your child's life when you least expect it, the stakes are this high. That is why we need these companies to have an incentive to put safety as their first priority. So that's why the repeal of CDA 230 is so vital. But I would say this rising issue of sextortion is one that is so urgent because the stakes are so high.
Yeah, and I'm so happy you brought that up because it has escalated, this sextortion, so fast, even in just the last year, really targeting usually teen boys. But Kelly, I was told, law enforcement we work with in Nigeria, they have like these warehouses, and they actually have, not only we have the predators doing it to make money and tutorials for them how to do it, but they actually traffic people and force them into scamming, American kids. It's like this full circle of just criminality going on, and it must be stopped. And you pointed out so rightfully so, it really starts with relationship with the kids, open and honest, because kids are smart and savvy, right? I just had a story of an 8-year-old buying a burner phone. I'm like, really? So but they're learning it all on the internet.
Yeah.
They can learn anything. So we really have to have age appropriate, kind of open and honest, starting from the time the kids can talk and walk, is what I think.
Yeah.
And because these issues are taking our beautiful children away from us, and it's just horrific. Haley, you also have a wonderful law center at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. I'll have all of that in the body of the video. Finish us up. Anything left to say? Because I could talk to you all day about this Section 230. This, to me, is the most important campaign of the year. Actually, not of the year. Right now, I'm calling this the most important campaign since I've been working with trafficking, because this is what it is all about, and the excellent work, the research. And we can't thank you enough for the research, the time taken, the care that you give to families, to children about all of these issues. It's very tough stuff, but people have to know you're there for them. So finish us up. What do you want people to know about, if they want to contact you, if they have thoughts they want to share with you? How does that work with the National Center?
Yes, please, going to dirtydozenlist.com, also our website, and sexualexploitation.org. You can always contact us, send us emails. We get good tips as well from the general public. If you are seeing abuse patterns happening online, or if you're seeing a way that we can promote mass scale prevention, that's really what our mission is. We want to go to the institutions, to the companies that are causing the harm, and prevent it from happening in the first place. We don't want to have nearly as many stories as we do of survivors. So I would encourage you to be part of this, and to be encouraged. It's a long legal name, so it can sound a bit intimidating. Contacting a legislator, it feels sometimes like you're speaking into the void. But every year with the Dirty Dozen List, we have seen victories and we have seen results because people like you take the time to do that. And we've had victories, obviously, with companies like I said, like at Google and Walmart and TikTok and more, but also as well with the government. We are seeing positive legislation move forward for device filters, for age verification. We are seeing the appetite for that at the legislators. They just need to know that it's on their citizenry's agendas. So we thank you all so much for participating. Thank you, Lynn, for shining a light on these issues, because they're dark issues. People don't often want to talk about them. It's sometimes uncomfortable to talk about, but the way that you make dark issues better is by shining a light on that. And so that's what you're doing, and we just appreciate that so much.
Well, thank you, Haley, for saying that. Our Warriors hashtag is community creates change. And so while you're fighting in DC with legislation and this research, boots on the ground, we need everybody in their own home and community just to take care of themselves. If they do that and follow along and share something on X or Facebook from the center, from the Warriors, that is good enough, because we want people to have the correct information. We want them to have some resources. Most important right now is this 2025 Dirty Dozen List. Section 230, Communications Decency Act. I say the whole name because, Haley, I'm brainwashing everybody. I just don't say 230. I want to keep, so everybody's going to be walking around saying this all day long. That is my dream, actually. End it, end it, end it. I say kick it to the curb. That's the way I put it.
I like it.
You know what? We at the Warriors, I'm so thankful. I can't do my job without you and without the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. I'll have all of this and this exciting brand new campaign in the body of the video so everybody can play along, I'd like to say. But I want to say to you, and to the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Absolutely the best, the nicest group of people, the most open group of people. And I just loved, I saw you last week in Washington, and you know what? Relationship, that's what makes things happen as well. So thank you so much for everything you do. Haley, you are really the warrior with Section 230 is going to go down. And that was
Yes.
of the Communications Decency Act. Thank you for being with us. Please keep us in the loop about everything so we can talk again more frequently, because I feel like now, 2025, there's so much action and hope and buzz in the air. Things are changing on a daily basis. So we have to keep up with everything to, keep up with the public and engage our warriors. So don't go anywhere, because I'll find you. I know where you are. I know where you are now. But thank you so much. You and the team have done a great job. You're such a warrior. Thank you.
Thank you so much.